Happy Tuesday, everyone. You are listening to Author's Best Friend podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, and I'm here today with my new bestie, Staci Hicks. Staci, what are you drinking?
Just water, like plain Jane.
I'm having a raspberry lemonade. I was very close to grabbing my go-to mango orange seltzer, and then I remembered that it makes me burp every time I do a podcast, so something nice and still. So for folks who don't know, Staci is the owner of Romance-Landia. It's an online bookstore for indie authors. So I'm very excited. We're going to be shaking it up a bit today. I think this will be a really useful episode for authors who are thinking about ways that they can branch out and get their books out there, and then also for readers who are looking for new ways that they can get access to some of their favorite reads. So Romance-Landia launched in April of this year. Is that right?
April, May, yep.
And so it's online only, and then you have occasional pop-ups in the Maryland area. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about how things have been going since you opened?
Yeah, so like you said, we opened like around April or May. We've been doing pop-ups occasionally. We try to do a couple a month, and then we solely sell everything online. So you can always get our stuff online. We only sell indie romance books. So that's independently published authors. We do occasionally have some traditionally published books, but we're trying to help market and get the word out for indie authors. So that's kind of our push right now. And so, yeah, so we're just... I just like dove in, and we do the books, we do the events, and we have done a book signing recently, and that went so well. So we're working on planning that again. We do some occasional other things like book fairs, and we're starting like a craft night for people, and then some silent book clubs. So we're kind of diving into like a whole bunch of different areas. So it's really exciting, and I'm beyond ecstatic for what we have planned for the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have so many questions about different types of events, particularly about your silent book club night. I'm curious about how this idea even got started in the first place.
I have been on Bookstagram probably like 4 or 5 years. It was always an escape for me, especially during COVID, being a new mother. And I got in touch with a ton of indie authors and kind of just fell in love with the whole process and everything that they did, and was looking for a way to help them get the word out, because so many people have not heard of them. And it's really sad for me, but I'm sure for them as well. And I was literally on a date night with my husband, and I was like, I have this idea, and you can tell me I'm crazy, and it's totally fine. And he's like, go ahead. And so I told him, and he was like, oh my gosh, I love that idea. And originally our idea was to do the pop-up bookstore, but then we were going to get a mobile bookstore and kind of travel and go different places, probably staying within the Delmarva area, so Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania. We have not done that yet, and we are actually leaning more towards a brick and mortar at this point, just because it makes the most sense. But yeah.
I'm really interested in this idea of a mobile bookstore. Is this sort of totally unrelated, but in the research that I do in graduate school, we do neuroimaging studies with babies and 7 to 9 month olds. And it can be a lot for families to come and travel to campus and park and gather up all the things for their infant. And so we had entertained the idea of a mobile lab where we would go to families' homes and they could just bring the baby out into a child-friendly van and run the studies there, so the parents didn't have to leave and travel and all that kind of stuff. And so this idea of sort of like catering to your consumer type and kind of moving around, I think is super interesting, because I think folks really love the idea of a nice, cozy type of bookstore. But like, I can think of a few that I go to regularly. I would say that probably the most popular, is going to be like a Barnes and Noble. There's not a ton of like cute little places, little cozy places you could go and find the types of like indie romance books you're looking for. And so I'm curious, like, even though it's still maybe just a concept, like, what did you sort of envision for your mobile bookstore to look like? Like, how do you even begin to set up something like that?
So originally I had anticipated it being a bus, and kind of gutting the whole bus out. And there's so much that goes into it that like I didn't even really think of, and insurance wise, like it's kind of a nightmare. And depending on where you go, it will depend on that as well. So I wanted it to be like, okay, let me back up for a second. So when I was in college, we went to this farmer's market in the city, and there was this woman there that had a bus, and she had turned it into a clothing store, and it was the Go-Go bus, and it was so cool. And I'm pretty sure she's still around. And she sells like clothes out of this bus. And it's basically like a cute little clothing shop. And it was like the coolest idea. And I was like, this is so cool, but I would want to do this with books. And I'm like, you could go in. It wouldn't really have places to sit depending on where you did it. You could probably put like tables and chairs outside for people to sit at. But obviously there wouldn't be room inside the bus. But ideally there would be, the bookshelves across all the walls and, cute decorations. And, I don't know. I had all these ideas and it's not to say that it won't happen, but right now I think just where the business has gone, I think that the actual brick and mortar makes the most sense. But I'm not pushing the idea aside. I think that it's a really cool concept and I like the idea of being able to travel to people, especially because where we live, there's a lot of people that don't even drive cars because we live in a town where there's college students. So it would make sense to be able to go to them. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who's to know? I mean, it could change and I could, a month later talk to you and be like, yeah, just kidding.
Yeah, I think particularly during COVID too, that seems like, who knows when we're going to get back into like the normal swing of things. And so being able to drive around seems like a cool option. So yeah, that's awesome. So you had mentioned that it's indie only and romance only. Does romantasy fit into that category?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that has any kind of romance in it. So we have a couple books that are like that have suspense in them. They have just like a mystery subplot. So, and as long as it's got a little bit of romance in it, I'm so down for it.
I mean, yeah, I think most of us, that's all we're interested for. I don't want to have to thumb through all the nonsense nonfiction books. Just show me the romance. Yeah. So why did you decide to do indie only?
So like I mentioned before, I kind of fell in love with it back when I started my Bookstagram account, and I grew really attached to a couple authors and really wanted to help authors in general. But I feel like indie authors don't get as much help because they don't have that publisher and they don't have as much of the advertising. Now, I'm not saying that being a traditionally published author is not difficult because I am 100% sure that it is. And they have a lot of their own struggles and stuff that they have to work through. They're very different. You're going to get one side where, their creativity might be a little bit different and they might not be able to post and say and do different things that an indie author can. But then again, the indie authors have different things that they have to deal with as well. So, I mean, you've kind of got both sides of the coin. But I don't know. I just really like indie and I love the authors and I don't know. It was just my thing. And I was like, that's all I'm all about. Like, I want to be able to sell something that I really, really am passionate about and something that I care about. And that's indie. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so how do the indie authors get their books in your store? Is it mostly has it evolved at all? Is it mostly like you reaching out to them or can they reach out to you or how does that work?
When I first started, it was mostly just me reaching out to them and trying to figure out the logistics behind it. So when you go to like a traditionally published author, you have to actually go to the publisher. You can't purchase them through the author themselves. But with an indie author, you can go directly to them. And they're also more likely to respond to your messages. So not always, but most of the time. But I would go directly to them. But now, since I've done some bigger events, I'm noticing that there's, some people that are reaching out to me, which is really cool. And I'm totally for it. If somebody wanted to work with me and get their books in the store, they can email me or they can go on my website and just fill out a form and I'll just get back in touch with them. And we just kind of work out the logistics of, fees and stuff like that. And they ship it to me and there it is. It's in the store.
So people can order physical copies from the website. Do they also can they get all on e-versions of the book or is it all physical copies?
It's all physical copies right now. We haven't really dove into the ebooks or audiobooks at this point. A lot of indie authors don't have the audiobooks anyways, so it's not a huge issue right now. But yeah, if you want the ebooks, you would have to go to Amazon.
And do you do signed copies or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If I'm getting them directly from the author, they're going to be signed because that's, the whole point. It's special. It's unique. That's something that you're not going to get at a traditional, indie bookstore. Mine is an indie bookstore, if you want to say that. So yeah, when you come to me, you can expect that majority of the books are signed. I do get some from a distributor and they aren't signed, but a lot of times I try to get like a book plate or something from the author to kind of go with it. So yeah, most of them are signed.
Yeah, I think for like the indie authors that I know, when I have their signed copies of books, you're hanging on to it, kind of thinking like, when this person makes it big, like I know they will because I love this book and I know other people will too. Like I'm gonna have their early signature before it's like
Right.
practice and perfect. Like this is an original.
Right, right. I just did a book signing and BK was supposed to be there. Unfortunately, she wasn't because she had a family emergency, but I had her original cover of Love Light Farms. And
Oh
I was
my
like, oh my gosh. But you think back to like when they were indie and like, you know, how far they've come and what they've done and how much they've accomplished. And it's crazy. I mean, so yeah, definitely holding on to that it's cool. It's a nice thing to have. And, you know, I just love supporting them. So if you can support them, why not?
Yeah. And the sad truth is that like you can be an amazing writer and you can write a really great book and it might not matter at all if you can't distribute it because
Absolutely.
social media is so hard to crack. It's so hard to get something that's trending and a lot of people can see it. It's hard to get things into bookstores. And when you even get it into a bookstore, it's like, well, there's a million books to choose from. Like, they're not going to recognize my name. How do I get them to pick up mine?
Right.
And so, yeah, you can have this really great book that you know, like, oh, people would just read it. I know they'll really like it. But you kind
Right.
of need, you know, the distribution muscle to kind of help you, you know, lift that up a little bit.
Right. And that was kind of my goal was like when you go to a Barnes and Noble or, you know, even a smaller, you know, indie bookstore and you see, you know, the traditionally published author might be on the same exact shelf as an indie author. But because you're so familiar with the cover of that traditionally published book, you're probably more inclined to grab that one. With me, you probably don't know most of the authors on my shelf, right? So you're going to say, hey, I really like this author's style, or I really like this trope. Can you find something for me that is in that realm? And then, you know, I've had people come back to me and they're like, oh my gosh, like this was so good. Why has this not been picked up yet? And I'm like, it literally takes one person. Like that's all it takes. It could be you.
Yeah, it could be you. I'm guessing you get like, you know, a million inquiries for books, but do you read all the books that you sell?
I so wish I could read them all. I try, like, especially if it's somebody like when I first started getting books, it was the authors that I, you know, have read that I really liked because I knew I could push those because I liked them and I knew what I liked about them and I knew what other people would like about them. But it's gotten so hard to keep up with everything. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I'm guessing that your time as a reader has gone down a lot since opening the
Yeah.
bookstore.
It's so sad because, yeah, I would read like 15 and 20 books a month. And now it's like I'm lucky if I get 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. So what does your day-to-day look like?
So I am a mom, a stay-at-home mom, and I actually homeschool my son. So most of my day is school. And then in between school, I'll answer emails and stuff like that, working on planning events.
So if you were a new mom during COVID, he just started school, yeah? He's like, we would be like 4 or 5?
He's in 2nd grade. Yeah, so he was born right before COVID. So he's in 2nd grade. But yeah, so we do school every day and then that doesn't take really long. I mean, we're done by lunchtime, but so we'll do that and then I am mostly at my computer working on emails and working on social media stuff and you know, on the weekends I'll do events. So it's busy, but it's good and I love it.
So how do you plan like what kind of events you're going to do? You mentioned that you're thinking about like a craft night and then you have like your silent book club and then you do pop-ups. You just said you did like your first like author reading and signing. So how do you sort of plan out like what events you're going to do during the month?
So in our area, there's really nothing. So I plan what I would want to go to. So with the book signing, there hasn't really been anything. So I'm like, I want to bring these authors here, you know, and with them being indie, I was like, oh my gosh, are people going to come? Are they, you know, am I picking people that they're going to know, whatever? But it actually was incredible. And I can't like I still don't even have words for it, and it's been like 2.5 weeks or something. But anyway, so I plan the events that I would want to go to, but also I've done polls on our Facebook page just to see and gauge like what my viewers are saying that they would want. And they actually are asking for silent book club. They asked for the craft night. They love the idea of doing like a booze and books or, like a coffee house night or something. So I'm trying to come up with some ideas like that because they're looking for it. Yeah. So if somebody comes to me with an idea, I'm like, okay, let's see how we can make that work.
So, did you come up with the idea for a silent book club? Is this like a thing that people do? I'd never heard of it before.
I did not. Nope. I did not come up with that idea. It's just, I have no idea who did, but we're going to do it at a salt cave. So you'll bring your book and you'll sit there and relax in the salt cave, and then they can shop afterwards or before. And it's just a way, especially for moms or people that are busy and just don't have the time to take an hour. Just take an hour, relax, read your book, and just enjoy your book. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's genius. Are there just like salt caves just like around in Maryland?
So it's so funny you say that. I originally saw the idea in Utah and I was like, this is so cool. Why do we not have this here? We don't have anything cool in Maryland. And all of a sudden, now they're like popping up everywhere. So we have 2 or 3 that I know of. But yeah, I don't know. They're supposed to be really good for you. I've honestly never done one.
Yeah, I mean, I know that like salt lamps were a little bit of a trend several years ago, but that's so cool. I saw the pictures that you had posted in it, and a part of me kind of thought maybe it's just like a concept. Like this is like where your mind will be when you're reading your book. It's so peaceful, but like an actual salt cave is really cool. It's such a good idea.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm excited.
And when is that happening?
That is November 7th, I believe. I think it's a Thursday, if I recall.
And do people like RSVP for these events, or they just kind of show up?
So for that, we only have limited space for it because the Salt Cave only holds, I believe, 8 to 10 people. So they have to buy their ticket. All the tickets are being sold through the Salt Cave. So they're kind of handling all of that. And then I think as long as there's still room, people can come the day of and grab a ticket. So as of right now, we're not sold out, but I have no idea.
And then for like the craft night or like the signings, those sorts of things, do you have like an event space that you go to that you rent out each time, or do you try to move it around?
So for all of our events, we're kind of trying out different locations. We have a book fair that we're doing in one location. The craft night we're doing in a different location. The book signing, we had a larger location because it was a larger event. So depending on, how many people we're anticipating will depend on the space.
Gotcha. What does that look like to like organize a book signing? And was the author from Maryland?
So for the book signing, we actually had, we originally had 22 authors signed up for the day.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we brought them in kind of from all over, and it took a lot of planning. I think we started advertising in May. So like shortly after opening.
Wow.
Yeah. And then for the book fair, there will be a couple authors there for that, but they're local. They're from Maryland. But yeah, it's a lot of planning, and I'm not an event planner. So it's been quite a learning curve, but I mean, people are asking for it. So I'm trying really hard to accommodate them. And, if that's what they want in the area, then they should get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, 22 authors. Yeah, that's a lot. Do they bring their own like book goodies and supplies, or do you order all of that stuff in advance and you have booths set up?
So we had 2 traditionally published authors. We had Hannah Bonham Young and B.K. Borison. So for them, since they're traditionally published, I had to provide the books. For the indie authors, they bring their own books, but we did do a pre-sale and they were able to pre-order books. So those I ordered, and then the authors brought, whatever else they thought might sell, all the stickers and, all the good stuff that you get at book signings. But yeah, we provided the space and table if they needed it, and linens if they needed it. But yeah, they pretty much provided all of their other stuff. And then they, just like any other book signing, they set everything up and people come in and check it out.
That's awesome. How was you said the turnout was really good. How many people would you say showed up?
We sold out. So we had a limited amount of people that were able to be there. So we could only have 120 people at a time, and we had that. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really awesome. What would you say is like maybe been the biggest challenge about opening Romance-Landia?
Originally, the biggest challenge I would say were like the legal stuff and the documents and, trying to figure out what certifications and different things that the county required. More recently, I would say finding space and finding places that people are willing to let us lease or use. That I think that's the hardest thing right now, is trying to figure that out. So that's one of our reasons for wanting a brick and mortar, is so that we have that space and we don't have to, stress out about where we're going to host these different things.
I guess like naive me imagines that like doing something online like that, you think it wouldn't be too difficult. There wouldn't be too many hoops to have to jump through to just have like an online bookstore, but maybe it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah. So depending on your state and your county, there's different requirements that they have you do for like tax purposes, just like any other retail store, because that's what I am. I have to follow different requirements for that. Yeah. And that's something I didn't know. Like, as a reader, you're like, what? I have to do what? But as a, retail person, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then what do you think has been the thing that maybe like surprised you the most? Either with it being the easiest or the most rewarding or the part you enjoyed the most?
I think the support. So I don't know. There's so many bookstores out there. So I was like, okay, here's another bookstore. And I think because mine is a little more niche, maybe, that I'm getting some support that I didn't originally anticipate. And that's been really rewarding and really nice. Just like you do with your indie authors, you're like hyping them up. So I have a couple hype girls that I'm really appreciative to. But yeah, it's hard because you start this thing and you've got this dream and you hope that people are going to be interested in and want to, support you, but you have no idea, like especially with the book signing, I had no idea that we were going to sell out of tickets. I mean, I hoped that would happen, but there was no way to know. So I'm just trying to, stay humble through the whole process. And it's going to take time to get everything, situated. I've only been open since May. So, I've got to give myself grace and try not to play the comparison game.
Mm-hmm. I do feel like you're set up pretty well if you're in a college town, like perfect reader base there.
Yeah, it's weird because even though it's a college town, I don't really see them that often. Like, I don't know where they're hiding. The campus must be amazing.
Yeah, they're just hanging out in house parties or something, not going out in the community.
Right, exactly.
So what is your like dream vision for your physical bookstore?
Oh man. So there's this place it's called a flex space. And what that is the front end would ideally be a retail store and the back end is more like a warehouse. And that's what I'm looking for, because I would like to do the store in the front and have it nice and cozy, all the bookshelves, maybe a seating area for people to kind of chill and read. And then towards the back would be event space where I could host all the events and have a space for authors to come do signings and then, do other kinds of events and bring in other vendors and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Are you more like you like the aesthetic of light and airy spring type summer colors, or are you more of like dark greens, blacks, grays, like get cozy and it's a little bit more of like an evening time setting? What's your aesthetic?
I'm definitely bright and airy. I love the bright colors. And I mean, I don't know if that's other people's vibe, but that's mine. Very, very feminine, very bright colored.
Mm-hmm. There's a romance bookstore here. It's called Meet Cute. And it's very like pinks and it looks like the cover of an Emily Henry book on the outside. But Sierra just went to a signing in Fairbanks, Alaska at Ivy Books. And that was probably one of the first bookstores they've seen where their aesthetic was like pretty dark. Like the walls have like black on them and they have like books glued up to the wall. And I was like, oh, that's also kind of cozy. I don't think they're exclusively romance, but I had never really seen a darker version of that. And I was like, oh, I could see how you could feel some more evening time, settle in and get cozy and read than like the typical like purples and pinks of romance books.
Yeah. I just saw somebody post earlier about a bookstore and they had like the antique furniture. They had a lot of greenery and stuff. And that's really cool. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's really cool. So we'll see. I really like the vibe of the ripped bodice. And so I think that that's very inspiring for me.
Would it be hard to keep greenery alive in Maryland, like year round?
I love plants, so I think I could make it work. There's a really cute coffee shop in town that we've done some events and stuff at, and she has floor to ceiling houseplants, and it is the cutest place ever. So I would love to incorporate that in it if I could.
Like, would Romance-Landia just be like the general name of your business, and that would be the name of the bookstore, online and physical?
Yes, it would be. Yeah. So it would be Romance-Landia.
How did you come up with the name?
Oh my gosh. I had so many ideas and so many different concepts. And, I was like, okay, what rhymes with this and what works with this? And let's come up with a play on words and this, that, and the other. And this is going to sound so ridiculous, but I was watching Outer Banks and they were talking about Pogelandia. And I was like, oh my gosh, what about Romance-Landia? I don't know. It's so ridiculous. But I was like, okay, it works. So I kind of just ran with that.
Yeah, that's how the inspiration strikes. You never know. I mean, I think that's how, like some book titles come to you. Like sometimes they're just like, them from the conception of the book. Sometimes the book title comes first and then the book comes after. Or it's just like you're just sitting there watching something and you're like, there it is. That's what we're doing.
I mean, I don't know. I sat down for weeks and I had drafted so many different concepts and so many different names. And then I was like, no, I hate them all.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes until you can stumble upon your winner. I'm curious, have you ever thought about writing your own book?
Yes. I may or may not be in the process of doing that.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
If you are in the process of doing that, but you also may not be in the process of doing that.
Yeah. No, I definitely am. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's happening.
Okay, let's just spill it all right now.
And how's that been going?
Yeah, it's going well. It's just been a process. Like, just like opening a business, there's a lot that goes into it that you don't even realize. Like I said earlier, as a reader, there's so much that like you don't think about. You don't think about needing an editor and needing a proofreader and needing an alpha and a beta reader. And like, there's so many different steps to it. Not just, hey, I wrote a book. I'm going to send it to Amazon. They're going to print it and it's going to be online. Like, nope, that is not how that works.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're thinking about doing the sort of indie author route?
Yes. Unless I somehow landed this incredible deal with a publisher that I couldn't pass up, then yeah, I would go the indie route.
So you feel pretty comfortable with like social media stuff. Obviously, you have to do it a lot for your business, but personally, I find that to be the most intimidating part, the part that I can't build an aesthetic to save my life, so it's just hard for me, but that just seems like a lot marketing that way. But is that something that you always were just like, you felt kind of good at or you felt competent in?
Yeah, I mean, it's daunting to say the least, especially because social media changes so frequently. And what was in yesterday might not be in today. And what might have worked yesterday might not work today. I did go to school for graphic design, so I have a little bit of an idea of what needs to be done. But yeah, that's definitely a huge struggle for me, especially because, I'm trying, like, I do what I would want to see, but that again might not be what somebody else would want to see. So I need to get out of my head and think, okay, this might be appealing to me, but what would somebody else want to see? And it's just like we said earlier, if the right person sees it and shares it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the trend stuff is crazy because it's not only like what other people want to see, but also like it needs to be slightly different from what everyone else is doing and not too like trite and overused. Like I don't use TikTok. I'm just on Instagram, which from my understanding means I see things 3 years later than everybody else. Like something's on TikTok and then 3 years later it makes it to Instagram Reels. But like once my algorithm picks up that I like something, it just blasts me with all that content. Like I don't know if the algorithm read like my engagement picture or whatever, but as soon as it got a whiff that I was engaged, it was like, boom, here's bride stuff all day long, every day and nonstop. To the point where I had to say, like, stop showing me this. Like, I'm tired of looking at this. Like, I want jokes about being, like a young adult and being tired at work, or like I want something else, some other content than bride stuff. It's sort of the same thing with book trends. Like you sometimes see stuff and then you see the trend so much for every book. And then it's kind of like, well, I saw that already. It was cute the first time I saw it. And then with this book, but then it's like, how long can I use this trend before now it's just like it's oversaturated, you know? It's just like such a
Right.
hard balance.
So my sister works in marketing, and one of the things that she was telling me was to look for the trends before they're trends, which is really hard because, how do you know it's going to be trending before it is? But there are some things that you can look for, especially like the amount of time that a sound is used. You want to grab it before it's been used a certain number of times, but not before this. So like
Mm.
there's different things like that you can look out for. I have yet to figure it out. She has figured it out, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, it if you can find it before everybody else has overused it, it'll work to your benefit. But a lot of times, yeah, I'm seeing it 3 months down the line and I'm like, oh, this is cute.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Literally, that is my life story. I'll send stuff to, and now, okay, so now TikTok won't even let you watch their videos if you don't have an account. Like I used to be able to play them like in an internet browser, but now you can't even watch them. And so I send them to Sierra so she can watch them and screen record them and then send them to me. So I don't have to admit to people that I don't have TikTok. But yeah, so I'll see something on Reels and I'll send it to my friends and they're like, yeah, that's old. Like we saw that. We knew about that already. And I'm like, darn it. Well, this is hilarious for me 3 years later.
I'm on TikTok, but I don't use it enough. And yeah, I feel like even with that, I'm seeing stuff after people have seen it. They're like, did you see this like, a week ago? I'm like, no, I did not. But it's funny now.
Yeah.
I'm like late on the joke, but whatever.
I'm over here laughing. Did your sister know you're writing a book? Well, she will now once this goes out.
Yeah, she knows I've been kind of playing around with it. I mean, she doesn't know exactly what. She actually does not read romance.
Oh.
Shame on her. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know. She's lucky you still keep in touch with her.
I know, right? I have two sisters. One of them is very into romance novels. The other one is not. And that's okay. To each their own. But yeah, they both know. They don't really know very many details. I've been kind of hush-hush about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll know in due time.
Does your other sister just not really read at all? Or does she, God forbid, read like nonfiction or something?
She'll read it sometimes. So she's more like hands-on. So she's more like crafty and she just never really I don't think she really got into reading like me and my other sister. So I don't know.
Well, maybe when the time comes when you're ready to start marketing your book, she can step in and help you do that.
Oh my gosh, I so hope so.
So not spoilers for your own book, but just like in general, what types of tropes are you drawn to? What types of things do you like to read?
I like Brother's Best Friend. I have no idea why. I guess because I always wanted a brother so I could date his best friend. I like Enemies to Lovers, Grumpy Sunshine. Yeah, those are probably my top 3.
You like the tension.
Oh, for sure. The angst, the tension. Yeah, give that to me, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, this bodes well for the book that you're writing for me, who's a Cancer, and I live for the angst.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very exciting. Do you think that you'll like do events for your own book with Romance-Landia?
I think so. Yeah. I think that, I don't see why not. I don't know. I haven't really thought too much into it because I'm trying to like, I don't know. Like I you always hope that like your baby's going to make it and it's going to not just be a dream and everything. So I'm trying to be positive, but also realistic. So.
Yeah. And I mean, from somebody who I also have met like a bunch of indie authors through the work that we're doing with the podcast, like you're doing it. And it's more of just like, you think I'm doing this so that people can get the word out and people can hear about these folks who are writing these books and maybe not a lot of people have access to. But you realize that you make a lot of really good friends along the way. And like some of the people I've met on this podcast, I'm like very good friends with now. And so you kind of like, all of us entertain the idea of a book here and there. And so you kind of think like, well, I have this whole network of people that like would support me, if I needed feedback or to give me tips on things or to be in my circle. So I think that already puts you a little bit of a leg up because you have a whole community of people who can help you figure out how to crack it.
Yeah. And I've been told by a couple different authors when chatting with them that you want to find people that are in the same time of writing process as you. So like if you're a brand new writer, find people in your circle that are also brand new writers who are going through the exact same process at the same time as you so that you can bounce ideas off each other or work through those frustrations, but also find people who have done it for a while and know exactly what needs to be done so that you can have them kind of walk you through it.
Yeah. I'm just now thinking that hosting like an author's writing group in a salt cave would be a really good idea. Like if reading there is good, then writing there would also be a really good idea.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. I have toyed with the idea of doing like a writing retreat. And also I've toyed with the idea of doing like just a reader's retreat, just, a group of people going and hanging out and reading all weekend without being bothered. Sounds glorious as a mother.
Yeah. I mean, writing retreats are definitely a thing. So why not, get together and read your favorite books?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, I think it's in the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, hey, now that you've brought that up, I'm so curious if there are salt caves near me, because that seems like even just as a graduate student, I could go and get some writing done and calm my mind at the same time.
Yeah, you should totally check it out because I think they are becoming more popular.
Yeah, I would be sort of surprised if we didn't have something like that here in San Diego. I'm going to add that to my list of things to Google after this. That's how I end most podcasts is I have a list of things I want to Google, whether they're like book recommendations or like I'll learn fun, like not tropes, but like slang or whatever that apparently is big on book talk that I did or Bookstagram that I didn't know about. Or that's usually what is on my sticky note is just a list of things. So like, look this up.
That's funny.
Moan test was a recent one. I had never heard it. Like if somebody's name passes the moan test and somebody said it and I died laughing and they're like, you've never heard that? And I'm like, great. Well, here we go again. Another thing I have not heard of that people have been laughing at for years probably.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Staci, for chatting with me and sharing all about your journey. Congratulations on the success of your store so far and the signings and all of that. It's so wonderful what you're doing for the indie author community. And hey, I'll keep my eye out for that brick and mortar and maybe I'll take a trip to Maryland.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That'd be so awesome.
And so Staci was our 20th episode, which is just like really crazy to think about. We started ABF in January. And so we've met so many people over this year, but at 20, it just feels like really surreal. And so we're actually going to be taking a break for the holidays. So this will be our last episode before we return in 2025. And I want to thank everyone for an incredible year. I got to meet so many wonderful authors and bookstore owners, and our bonus episode for our writing coach. And I've made some really good friends along the way. And so I hope you all have a really nice holiday, and we will see you next year. Staci, thank you so much.
Thank you.